Oh, what about my table? Oh my God.
What's up, my brother?
AJ Rage, what's going on? Are we
Mighty
live?
Mike. 2019's almost out of here. How do you feel about that?
A fucking good riddance.
Oh my God, this year has been the year of the devil.
Oh my God. Say that again.
9
Can you hear me all right?
Huh?
Can you hear me?
Sound great, dude. Sound
For
better
some
than
reason, I can't hear myself on my headphones. Can you hear yourself in your headphones?
I can hear them both.
I
I
only
can hear myself, you, and God.
Well, I can only hear you, but that's all right though.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Let's just make sure we're live on YouTube before we start.
Yeah. We're gonna be here. We are live. Like, how are we looking?
Let's see. Yeah.
We should be live as hell.
Are we live? I'm not seeing anything.
Let's see here. Live streams.
I'm not seeing anything, bro. Because I normally get an alert to my phone. Because I have the little bell icon and all that stuff.
Give me 1 second then. Here, let me do this real fast. We should be. When it says we're live. I don't know what's going on here. Let me check this real quick. Oh boy. 1 second.
Okay, we're live. Yeah, I see it.
Oh, okay. See?
All right. Sorry about that, folks.
Sorry about that, folks. It's been a horrible year, and we promised we were going to do a better job in 2019. But in reality, we really don't give a shit. So,
2020, you mean?
Whatever, 2020. Okay. So this is our first annual year-end
our first
awards.
ever year-end awards. Yeah.
Year-end awards.
Basically, a lot of well, not a lot of, but there's a few channels out there that have been doing these year-end awards, and I thought about it this morning. We talked about it briefly and put it together. I think a pretty reputable list. I think might not be the most popular list, but we're not casual boxing fans.
We're definitely not casual boxing fans.
No. We actually spend time in gyms and spend time from the small club cards all the way up to the big major events. So
yeah, you're absolutely
so. Anyways, it's today is Tuesday, December 31st, 2019. What? 10 more hours, 10 and a half, 11 more hours until we hit 2020.
What are you doing? What are you doing for the New Year's?
Nothing, man. I'm not feeling good. I'm a little under the weather.
I was like that too for a while.
I got a little.
By the way, for people that don't know, I'm probably one of only 4 people in the entire country that actually like eggnog. I actually looked for it in stores because I missed it during Thanksgiving and Christmas. I said, "There's no way they still sell it," and I actually found it in a store. Now, whether it's fresh, I don't know, but it tastes good to me.
I love eggnog.
I love eggnog. So, sitting here looking at Cosmic Colt, you know. Okay, so let's jump right into this, bro. What do you say?
Let's jump right into it.
Okay, so let's go.
We've broken it down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categories. We're not going to bore you with a bunch of nonsense like robbery of the year and all that stuff. We're just gonna.
No. We're gonna keep our thing in. So here we go. I got my little drum pad right here.
Let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it.
First one we're gonna
Prospect of the Year.
Prospect of the Year.
And here we go. Prospect of the Year. Drum roll, please.
And this is based on, like I said, the way that we've compiled these lists of these honorees is we had a discussion, and in some cases we were in agreement, and in some cases we couldn't quite agree on the same guy, so we just selected either a tie in the category or a runner-up, like a 1 and a 1A. So with the first one, I think we both selected either the same way. Prospect of the Year we give to, you want to say it?
I'll let you say it, bro.
From Sydney, Australia, Rockville, Sydney, Australia, Tim Zhu.
Tim Zhu.
Who's currently, I think Tim Zhu is current. Well, as you know, 2 fights ago he won the He won the Australian junior middleweight title. He just defended it once against Jack Brubaker, right?
Correct.
But in terms of prospect and somebody that I feel is progressing with each fight, some of these prospects that are getting a lot of shine, they're either sadly, in the case of like, for example, like a Carlos Balderas, sadly he was upended. He was kind of derailed. I think going into the end of the year, he was one of my probably top 3 picks for prospect of the year. I just think from a developmental standpoint and increasing his marketability and his overall footprint in boxing, I think Tim Tszyu is doing a great job. He's getting better with each fight, and the most impressive thing about Tim Tszyu is the development that he's achieving. He's not relying on his father. I mean, unlike a Julio Cesar Chavez or fighters before him that have relied solely on their father's, the tracks or the road that was laid for them by their father. Tim Tszyu doing it on his own. You agree?
I totally agree with you, bro. And I was actually really impressed with Tim's fight against Brubaker. Like I said, Brubaker, he wasn't a monstrous hitter, but he was a guy that just kind of, he was very experienced and he brought in a lot of confidence, and that's something that a fighter like Tim Tszyu is going to experience later on. But Brubaker, when you get a fighter that has that much confidence coming into a fight, it could be a dangerous situation for the other fighter. And it wasn't just a narcissistic confidence. He felt that Tim Tszyu wasn't ready for this big show, and Tim Tszyu dominated. And Tim Tszyu looked like he had a chip on his shoulder. He showed a different side of Tim Tszyu. Do you agree?
I agree. And in addition to, in addition to his domination of Brubaker, the frequency in which he fought 4 times in 2019. A lot of these other prospects are fighting 1-2 times a year, and I think just based on sheer volume, and like I said, in the gradual increase in competition, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, most casuals out there are going to say like a Virgil Ortiz or maybe a Ryan Garcia. You can't really call Teofimo Lopez a prospect anymore because he does technically hold a belt, the WBA belt, I believe, even though Lomachenko is considered the champion emeritus or whatever they call it, the super champion, WBA super champion. So, but like I said, in terms of just somebody that you're going to see big things from in 2020 and beyond, this guy is going to be right in the mix. And like I said, he's a combination of a boxing ability, power. I mean, his knockout of was it Cornejo a few fights ago? Mm-hmm. Actually, at the end of 2018, that was a brutal knock. If you watch that fight, he looked like, I mean, that was a brutal knockout. That was a guy I believe who had not been stopped previously.
No, you're absolutely right. And the thing was that what I really liked, from right from the get go with Tim Tszyu was the fact that he doesn't rely on his father, for his name or for what he's done in boxing. He does have some characteristics that will remind you of his father, the physical presence being one of them. But the thing that really gets me about Tim is that, he's a bigger fighter. He's fighting at a heavier weight, and he's got some different tools, and he's kind of he's kind of paving his own direction in boxing right now.
Yeah, he's carving his own way.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He respects his father a lot, you could tell, but he understands that, like in the sense what happened with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. recently, you can't walk in your father's shoes. At some point, you gotta lace up your shoes like a big boy and walk on your own. And I think that's what Tim Tszyu is doing right now, and I congratulate him. And I 100% prospect of the year, Tim Tszyu. I think we're gonna look at big things at him in 2020.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think there's been some rumors. I know when he was here a few months back, he was sparring with Manny Pacquiao, getting a lot of work in at the Mayweather gym in Vegas as well. So to me, it was kind of like it was almost like a showcase type of thing. He made a trip over here, like I said, for a few weeks, sparred with some pretty reputable guys. And I think there's a chance that someone like a Top Rank or somebody is showing some interest in will probably, if they haven't already signed him to a multi-fight deal, it will happen very soon. And they're going to showcase him on one of these American cards. And if you've been around boxing more than the last decade, everybody knows the name Kasazu, and they know what he was able to achieve and the fighters that he beat, and he unified the division. I think prior to Terrence Crawford, he was the last unified champion at 140 pounds. So
No, you're absolutely right. And the thing is that yeah, like I said, I mean, it's only going to get better and better for Tim Zoo. He's physically got the size. I mean, he's getting bigger and bigger. He's still a young guy, and he does. The one thing he did get from his father is he has that power.
he does. He's got that straight right hand, and man, he throws it. I mean, he throws it just like his dad threw it.
No,
He
exactly.
he does have a tendency sometimes to pull straight back a little bit, but so far he's gotten away with it. His dad kind of did something similar when he fought, but like I said, in terms of prospect of the year, I think people need to keep an eye on him and remember that you heard it here first. We're probably the only guys out here on YouTube that are saying that are looking beyond the fights that we see on ESPN Plus, DAZN, and Fox. We're looking, beyond, and I do believe ESPN Plus picked up his last fight and showed it live from Australia. But so 2019 prospect of the year goes to 15-0 junior middleweight prospect Tim Zoo.
Yeah, and, and like I said, I mean, I think we're the only reason why I don't think he's more of a household name at this point, right at this point right now, is the fact that he's not in America. I think as soon as he, like you say, walks across the street, you know,
Yep.
it's gonna. I think people are gonna, and he's a fan friendly guy. He's a
Yeah.
fan friendly guy, and he's a very grounded young man, and I think it's only going to be better and better for him. So I'm really excited to see where he goes. So we'll
All
see.
righty. So so moving on. Okay, let's jump right into our next award, Promoter of the Year for 2019. And this was me and you were completely in agreement with this as well. Promoter of the Year for 2019, Mr. Bob Arum of Top Rank Boxing.
Top rank boxing. I agree too, bro. I think he separated himself from some of the other promotions just on the fact that he matched some of his best fighters against some of his best fighters. You know,
Yeah, and from a champion standpoint, we all know that Top Rank has what's considered 1 and 1A in terms of pound for pound best fighters in the world right now, Vasily Lomachenko and Terrence Crawford. But in addition to that, he's got some young and up and coming champions. He still develops prospects. He's got Shakur Stevenson. He's got Michael Conlon. He's got Teofimo Lopez. He's got and he's got a myriad of other fighters, but those are the ones that just come to mind.
no, absolutely.
Bob Arum's a guy that can still put the big show on. He's doing the I guess a co-promotion with Tyson Fury with Queensberry Promotion and Frank Warren. So he's dabbling into the heavyweight market. He's got the lightweight market kind of cornered, a little bit. He's got a lot of good lightweights and yeah, I mean, what else can you say about the man? What did he just turn 80, 84 or whatever he just turned, and he's still.
And I think that's a reason why he's so. I'm sorry, I'm having some issues with my headphones right now. Why he's putting a lot of these fights on? Maybe Bob's at the point where he's like, I don't have a whole lot of time left, so I know I personally want to watch these fights because say what you want to say about the guy, whether or not you like, his ethics within boxing or, some of the decisions that he's made. But at the end of the day, he's a big fight fan. He loves boxing.
Yeah.
It's been a part of his entire life, his entire existence. So he wants to see some of these big fights. And
Yeah.
now he's going to get some of the big fights. I don't want to shed anything negative. We talked about something earlier yesterday, but we'll talk about more at another time. We'll shed a little light on what we think that might be a little internal rift going on in Top Rank and stuff like that. But for right now, just want to congratulate, the dinosaur, the oldest guy out there doing it and still doing it. He proved it again, going into 2020. He made it to 2020. Jesus Christ.
Hey,
Bob
maybe
Arum,
2020,
Top
maybe
Rank.
2020. I mean, he's still putting on the pay-per-views. He's obviously has the ESPN Plus platform. Signed that multi-year deal with ESPN, the network. So I mean, he continues to stay. He's kind of twofold. He's kind of doing a little bit of what Eddie Hearn's doing with the subscriptions with ESPN Plus, but he's also doing the pay-per-views, which PBC has most notably put the biggest pay-per-views on the last couple of years. They still follow that business model. So yeah, I mean, Bob Arum. I don't know what happened there. What happened?
What's that?
What is that up at the top of the screen there?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just our chat viewer thing that popped in. I'm getting rid of it. Okay.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Bob Arum,
Bob Arum, Promoter of the Year. Your
promoter.
award's in the mail.
Your award along with your coupon for 2 free tamales at Del Taco. They're brand new tamales at Del Taco. Or,
Yeah, those are those good?
dude, I wanted to get one the other day, but Gigi wouldn't let me get one. She says I'm not going to deal with the consequences.
They look good.
So yeah, I know. Okay,
All
so
right, let's
let's
moving
move
right
on in.
along. We are going to what is our next
Comeback of the year.
oh yeah, comeback of the year. What am I doing? Yeah,
It's
comeback of
okay.
the
Yeah,
year.
we skipped one, but yeah, we're gonna go comeback of the year. Let's get the drum roll going. Now, comeback of the year. There were some fighters. This was one. This wasn't an
This is a tough
easy.
one.
This is a tough one because there was a lot of fighters out there, and that we thought some names that popped right out at us and stuff like this were some higher fight. And we'll talk about that once we announce the winner. But go ahead.
Maybe the higher profile fighters, and that's the thing. I think people need to look beyond just the high profile fighters.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fighters, and in terms of everybody knows the marquee guys and the guys that they see on TV, but I
Yeah.
think we're diving a little bit deeper, which I think I don't know. I think, like I said, we're not casual fans, and we try to look at the entire spectrum of boxing.
Yeah. And so let's go ahead and reveal the winner, and then we can talk more about himself. So drum roll here. Brrr. So Mike, go ahead. The winner of our comeback
Comeback
of
of
the
the
year.
year fighter is Julian J. Rock Williams.
There we go.
And primarily because after his fight with Charlo, I mean, he was kind of he was kind of a guy that was just kind of left for dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody expected him to do what he did in winning that world title. And I believe he holds 2 belts, I believe.
Yeah, he actually got 2 belts in that
So
victory.
yeah,
He got the IBF and he got the WBA.
WBA, yeah, IBF and WBA.
But the thing was, I think what was just so impressive about J Rock was the fact that, a lot of people, not just inside of boxing but outside of boxing, gave him very little opportunity to beat Jarrett Hurd, especially somebody of Jarrett Hurd's size and stature and where he was being placed as far as one of the top guys in the division. I think, and then people were questioning Julian Williams' chin based on what happened with Charlo. He did everything he had to do right. He not only beat Jarrett Hurd, he knocked down Jarrett Hurd, he bullied Jarrett Hurd, he pushed Jarrett Hurd back,
And who
he
would have
stood
thought
toe
that
to
he could do
toe
that?
that he would do that with a guy
Yeah.
that was considered the kind of guy that you don't do these things. So he did everything he wasn't supposed to do against Jarrett Hurd and came out victorious. And that's why when I was thinking about it, it was an easy decision. Don't get me wrong. I think the accomplishments that Manny Pacquiao did against Thurman and you name some others.
And then John Pascal, we also
You know.
honorable mention. We talked about him
Yeah.
defeating Marcus Brown, and then however, whether or not you viewed him as the winner last week against John Pascal,
You got to give him credit just for Marcus Brown.
You got to give him credit. Yeah,
Yeah, Marcus Brown is the guy's an amazing fighter. And the thing is like, you're right, bro. So I mean, but it was a tough decision. But I liked Julian Williams. I think this is a huge victory for him, and it really kind of shook up that division right there a little bit.
Yeah, and he's a guy, like I said, I mean, he's not the same fighter he was, back in 2017 when he lost to Charlo. That's a given. I would like to see that rematch. I know he's scheduled to fight that.
He's trying to get it right now.
I know he's scheduled to fight Rosario though, coming up pretty soon, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason Rosario. He's scheduled to fight actually in January in a couple weeks.
That's going to be an easy fight for J Rock. Once he gets past Rosario, he's already made it perfectly clear, and he's not trying to look past the guy. He wants Charlo. He wants the rematch. Now, whether or not he's going to get the rematch against Charlo, who knows? Because the way Charlo, that I've seen in the interviews and the stuff I've seen him saying, he has very little interest because I think he knows Julian Williams is not the same fighter. It's no different than him stepping up and taking on Erickson Lubin in another thing. He knows Erickson Lubin is not the same fighter he was.
Yeah,
and Charlo, let's be honest, even with his victory over Harrison, he hasn't been impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, he wasn't overly impressive.
No.
I don't believe in that last fight. In fact, he was losing the fight. But
Yeah.
whatever. So going back to Julian Williams, obviously big things coming up for him in 2020. Like I said, he's got this defense against Rosario, Jason Rosario. But going forward, this guy's. I mean, they can match him up against Tony Harrison. They can match him up against Jermell Charlo. They can match him up against. I don't think Jared Hurd's all too interested in a rematch with Julian Williams
No,
based on what
Jared
happened to him in that fight.
They've actually already. I was watching a thing where they basically said, "There's not." They didn't pursue their rematch clause, and they're basically going to let it kind of like expire. They don't have any interest at all.
Yeah, and which is shocking too, because I just read something a few days ago that J Rock stated he's not going to go to 160. He feels he could still make 154.
No.
So I'm thinking, if you're still at 154, what are you going to do? I mean, unless maybe Jared Hurd gets a shot at the Charlo. Maybe they're setting that up because maybe
Or Jared
Charlo
Hurd's stepping
feels,
up to deeper waters.
possibly
160. Yeah. I mean, we've
Well,
talked
no,
about.
well, no. He said that's what I was saying. He just said he's staying at 154.
See, that's surprising to me. He looks like a guy that would have more problems making weight than even Munguia, but I've never heard about Jared Hurd struggling to make weight. I've never heard of him struggling to make weight.
Yeah.
Have you?
No, I mean I haven't heard any ins and outs of that. No, but
Yeah.
he's so physically big. You can just
Yeah, he's a monster.
so.
Okay, so once
Okay,
again,
so,
comeback of the year goes to congratulations to Julian J. Rock Williams. Your ticket to Kohl's for 2 new white T-shirts and a Big Mac Happy Meal is on its way from ETR, and a hat and an old shirt this shirt. Matter of fact, I'll give you this one right here. It's called The Gladiator. John Molina Jr. John, you need to send me another one of these real quick so I can send it out to J. Rock. Okay, going to the next one now.
How my voice is going.
Here we go. Trainer of the year.
Trainer of the year, and this was another one where we really kind of dug in and we said, okay, wait a minute, let's look at this fighters, their resumes, their body of work in the last 12 months, and even a little bit beyond, because so many fights happened at the tail end of 2018. We kind of factored those in, and this one we came down to a tie.
Yeah, and like I said, yeah, absolutely, and I know some people might look at. Well, we'll give you the factors behind it after we reveal the winner. So, Mike, I'm gonna let you go ahead and let me get this thing set real quick, and here we go. And the trainers of the years.
Trainers of the years, co-trainers of the year, in our opinion, are Derek James and Robert Alcazar.
Yeah.
Now let's dive into that a little bit more. My reasoning for selecting Derek James was because I just believe. I mean, aside from the fight that just took place with getting Jermell Charlo back on track and keeping, it can't be an easy guy to train. That's what I looked at. Here's a guy that just obviously he runs hot. He's confrontational, whether it's press conferences, weigh-ins, whatever. He's got to be a nightmare of a kind of guy to work with. And you figured the fact that he was able to keep this guy mentally ready after losing that title. And like I said, even though he was losing that fight against Harrison, at the end of the day, he did what he had to do to win the fight. He was a bit delusional after the fight and assessing his own performance. He felt he dominated, which was not the case. But that's neither here nor there. He brought Jermell Charlo back from the brink and to regain his world title. And of course, Errol Spence, he trained Errol Spence masterfully, I thought, for the Mikey Garcia fight. I mean, not that he had to do much with that, because Errol Spence, we all knew that was just a payday fight for Mikey Garcia. But I mean, Errol Spence, in my opinion, is the top welterweight in the world. I have him rated above everybody at 147. So based off of those two fighters and those two performances, that's the reason why I selected Derek James as the co-trainer of the year. Now, I'll let you make your assessment on Derek James, and then we'll discuss Robert Alcazar.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Derek James has done a phenomenal job with not only how, obviously, even going into this fight with Harrison, there had to be a lot of pressure. There had to be a lot of questions asked to him based on the fact of what's going on with Errol Spence right now. So to be able to deflect a lot of that and just concentrate on what's in front of you. And it was a big mountain to climb, because a lot of people saw in that fight against Tony Harrison, Harrison's for real. He's the real deal. So the thing is that doing that, and I absolutely agree with you. Charlo has to be him and his brother both. They're absolute nightmares. We know that. We've seen them in real life. We've seen them in fights. We've seen them in everything. They're nightmares. It's always got to be me, 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 me. And trying to train a guy like that it's got to be.
It can't be easy.
No, I mean, it gives me flashes of what's her name, Ann Wolf, kicking in doors and crack houses and stuff, looking for Lamont Kirkland. It's got to be one of those situations, but just not the drugs involved. Just dealing with somebody who's just a total head case that just doesn't want to listen to direction. And I can tell you right now, trying to get direction through on Jermell Charlo has got to be a nightmare. It's got to be a nightmare. Just dealing with that every day. How would you like to get a phone call from that guy every morning?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
It's like, oh God, but yeah. So, but on that, but like on Robert Alcazar now, I'll let you go ahead. You want to go ahead and start on that?
Well, it's no mystery that I know Robert very well, and I've spent the better part of the last couple of years overseeing and assisting him in training some fighters. But when we talked about Robert Alcazar, in addition to obviously preparing Jaime Munguia to be more of a boxer and defeat Saddam Ali. I mean, when you think about it, he was boxing in that fight. He was on his toes. He stepped in, caught him with that left hook. So in the limited time we had a couple months with him before he fought that world title. Here's a lot of things. Here's an interesting fact that a lot of people don't know. Robert, as a trainer, had not lost a fight with a fighter in approaching 18 years.
Yep.
His first defeat in several years, well, like I said, in a decade, came at the hands of with John Molina when he lost to Josecito Lopez. But prior to that, he prepared Munguia. At one time, he had 6-7 fighters, all reputable fighters in camp. So to be able to manage his time and to work with every one of these guys individually, I mean, there's hardly enough hours in a day. Let's just put it that way to get this amount of work done. So in addition to guiding Munguia to a world title, because he was the head trainer for that fight and for the first few defenses, here's an interesting fact. 2 of Robert's pupils, guys that he trained for years, Jose Chon Cepeda, and I believe he trained Cepeda for 7.5, almost 8 years consecutively. Took him to an undefeated. I mean, he was 30-0. He had the one blemish on his record when they went to the UK, and that unfortunate shoulder injury occurred against Terry Flanagan in a fight that should have been a no contest. They called it a technical knockout win for Flanagan, but
which was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
In addition to that, he also trained Francisco Panchito de Vaca for 6.5, going on 7 years. And now here's why I say that. Both of those guys fought for world titles in 2019. Obviously, Panchito came up short, and in my opinion, he just fought the wrong fight. And I've discussed it with him, but I just think he fought the wrong fight
against Navarrete.
Against Emmanuel Navarrete, who right now is just kind of steamrolling everybody.
Yeah.
And then Chon Cepeda lost a very controversial decision to Jose Carlos Ramirez,
which I scored for
in
Chon Cepeda,
Fresno.
And most people in the boxing world scored for Chon Cepeda.
Yeah, more of the reputable people.
Oh,
I think the judges got a little bit carried away in the crowd noise in the second half of the fight and completely forgot the first 6-7 rounds of that fight. But either way, the reason why we bring this up and why we're acknowledging Robert is because it's like in college football. I'll give an example. Like Urban Meyer built this phenomenal Ohio State football team with recruiting and the groundwork and the infrastructure, and then due to health concerns, he abruptly had to step away from coaching. Well, the new coach steps in, and nobody has delusions that the new coach did anything astronomical or anything beyond the norm. It's building the team, and to use football as an analogy and a comparison, it takes years to build a fighter and to get them ready to make that to make that ascent to the highest stage in boxing, which is fighting for a world title. And both guys did it. And Manny Robles got the credit on for getting Panchito de Vaca the title shot, even though this was his very He had nothing to do with it. This was his
Nothing to do
very
with it
first
at
fight. I'm
all.
not saying he didn't have anything to do with helping Panchito because he did. I want, I won't disparage the man in that way. But in all those 6.5 plus almost 7 years of getting him prepared to fight for a world title, that was all Alcazar. Same thing with John Cepeda. John Cepeda left Robert after I think 30 plus fights after the Chuco Diaz fight and started training with Freddie Roach. But I don't know the specifics of that, but I think, I had heard through the grapevine that, he would work with Roach a couple days a week, and the other days a week he was working with his brother Rene, who has been basically in his brother's team since he started boxing. And you could see how good of a fighter Chon Cepeda is. He's a great fighter. He's a great fighter who's got a questionable defeat, two questionable defeats, and a masterful boxing performance against Pedraza, and in winning that. I think it was unanimous. I know that, but I mean, most people.
Probably one of the best performances Pedraza's ever put on, and I'm going to put it even against what he did against Lomachenko and what he did obviously didn't do against Lomachenko or Tank Davis. Pedraza had a game plan. He just couldn't put it together because of how masterful Chon Cepeda was in that fight. And I don't think a lot of people give credit that even though Tank Davis blew out Pedraza, who a lot of people know in boxing what Pedraza was dealing with going into that fight. And then obviously what happened with Pedraza put up a good fight against Lomachenko. That's a tough guy to figure out. But as far as thoroughly being put in a situation where he was completely being thoroughly outboxed and not being able to hit the target, nobody did it better than Chon Cepeda.
That's true.
He was absolutely doing. He had Pedraza so completely frustrated, and not even know. Pedraza wasn't that frustrated against Lomachenko, and he just couldn't figure nothing out. And then, like when you had that discussion with Chon at the fights recently, he has this little part where he kind of questions himself a little bit, and maybe that's just the good nature of the kid. Being that he doesn't want to have his head up in the stars and think, oh, I'm better than everybody. But it's at the point now where Chon's got to realize Chon is not your average fighter. He's not a good fighter. Chon is on the level of a great fighter. He can match up with anybody out there in the sport right now and most of the time be successful. But it's all up to Chon.
And I think the third time is going to be a charm in regards to winning a world title. And we don't know for sure, but there's probably a good chance that he fights for a world title sometime in the spring, or if not for the world title, because I believe the fight against Pedraza was an eliminator.
Yeah, it was.
So
he's set up for the title, whether the title is vacated or he actually gets the title shot itself. You know what I'm saying? And what we were talking about, and it's not a rumor anymore. I mean, the word's now out on the street. I know we were one of the first ones to kind of talk about it, but Ramirez going over to China and fighting against Victor Postol, it's just kind of like a feeding ground because he's gonna be the next person for Terrence Crawford. That's gonna be the fight.
So you're saying he's going to vacate that title?
Oh, absolutely, he's going to vacate it. He's vacating the title because supposedly he's had problems with his weight. So he's going to fight this fight against Victor Postol, and then that's going to lead the fight to Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford's going to take I don't want to even get in the whole thing, but he's going to take a heap of shit for that. It's a whole other thing. But that's going to set up that opportunity there for Chon to match up against somebody else. Now, will it be who we would love it to be in Josh Taylor, or would it be somebody else? Chon's ready for anybody,
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. But it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good year in 2020 for Chon Cepeda. Keep your eye on him, and congratulations to two great trainers, man. Like I said, I mean, like what my brother Mike was saying about Robert Alcazar, he's phenomenal. And the thing is, and one of the things that I've always said is that Robert's one of these guys that he's a rarity. He's actually a guy that's developed fighters. Look what he did with De La Hoya. And he's been able to, when you could balance a guy like Oscar De La Hoya and then have to deal with the crazy world of guys like Edwin Valario, amongst others. Valero, I'm sorry. These are the kind of things that a lot of people don't know. Robert's always been that quiet shadow, that whisper in the dark, leading his guys to victory, where there's other guys out there that want to be like, hey, look at me. Hey, look at me. That's not Robert Alcazar.
No, not at all.
I see this guy at little local shows, and he just had one of his young fighters fight, Rene Moreno, who was successful against a very tough kid from Haiti. And it wasn't like, hey, look at me. He was just doing his job day to day. Doesn't matter if it's Oscar De La Hoya pay-per-view in front of, 4 million on pay-per-view, or if it's, 150 people, at the Quiet Cannon. He
See, and
still
people
bring the
forget
same.
that.
Yeah.
People forget that for the better part of a decade, Oscar De La Hoya was the cash cow in boxing, and the
And
biggest
in
stages
promoting, he's a
on the
cash cow
world.
still. So.
Yeah, and the biggest stages in the world. I mean, like I said, they had an 11-year undefeated run and 6 world titles before the obviously the Phoenix Trinidad debacle, which anybody that knows
And
that's
I'll be
honest with
honest with you, I
themselves.
was one of those guys I was so tired of Oscar because he was so goddamn good. And he just couldn't lose. And
Yeah,
I wanted Felix to win that fight, but I knew in my heart, we both looked at
yeah,
each other and were like, we knew Trinidad didn't win that fight.
yeah. How the hell did that
you know.
happen?
But so congratulations to Derek James and Robert Alcazar,
Co-trainers of the year.
ETR co-trainers of the year. So we're gonna move on to our next
What are we doing next? Fighter of the year or fight of the year?
fight of the year.
Fight of the year. We're going to fight of the year, and this was another one where we
Two.
we we had a tie because there was two great fights that stuck out.
Mm-hmm.
That both happened in 2019. Actually, in the second half of 2019, and we'll
Yep.
just go ahead and say them right here. We have a tie between Naoya Inoue versus Nonito Donaire, and obviously Sean Porter versus Errol Spence. We were at the Porter Spence fight, and
We covered.
we covered the ETR live the Inoue Donaire fight. We woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch that fight
What
coming
a fight
from
it was too.
from Japan.
It was worth every ache in my body that I had to experience the rest of the day for being up that early in the morning. But
Yeah, both those fights were amazing. I mean, when you look at the significance of the Porter versus Spence fight, it was a unifying fight at welterweight, which doesn't happen that often anymore. So it was two of the best guys at 147, probably the number one guy and arguably the number three guy. I mean, a lot of people rate Terrence Crawford above Sean Porter, but either way, it was two top welterweights in their prime and put on a 12-round boxing spectacle. I mean,
Tell Mom to be quiet. I'm
it
sorry about
was
that,
a
bro.
it, it was a great fight. Obviously, Spence won a close decision, a split decision, but it was a great fight. It was action packed. It had drama. It had ebbs and flows of the action back and forth. It had the knockdown that almost wasn't a knockdown. I mean, that shot that Spence caught Porter with. My God, the fact that he was able to take that shot and continue on was just a miracle. That was a beautiful shot.
That entire fight was amazing, and you're right, because I remember in that little group that we were in over at the Staples Center, you had some people that were going for Porter, some people that were going for Spence, and the crazy thing about it was, when Porter got knocked down, it wasn't even really fully a knockdown. He absorbed the full force of that punch, but it was what Porter did right afterwards. Right,
Yeah, he
he
got
get
up.
up and go into defensive mode. He got up and looked right over at Errol Spence. It was like, "Come on, man, let's
Yeah,
do
he
this."
shook his head and
And I looked at the guy in front of me. Remember the kid from Dallas, and I was like, "This is gonna get ugly right now." And all of a sudden, sure enough, didn't. And matter of fact, Porter won the last half of that round. Was putting it on Errol. So
Yeah, I mean, top-notch performance by two
by both
top-notch
fighters,
welterweights.
and that makes you. And I think that pretty much sums up why. I'm going to continue to be the nayssayer. Why Terrence Crawford wants absolutely nothing to do with either one of these guys, and I'm going to just say it the way it is. But that's not what we're talking about right now. So let's go ahead and let's talk about Donaire.
Okay, so in addition to being one of the best fights you'll see this year, it was a great fight, back and forth battle. The significance of the fight and why it qualifies as fight of the year. It was the monster fighting in the final of the World Boxing Super Series. Fighting top competition the entire way in this round robin, not a round robin, but this elimination style tournament,
destroyed him.
and destroying people. And then everybody that week, everybody was saying the same thing that they were saying this past week with Gamboa versus Tank Davis. Everybody said, "Oh, Inoue is going to walk through him," and me and you were like, "Whoa,
Nope.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Pump the brakes!
Nope.
Pump the brakes!" Nonito
And
Donaire
what was our reasoning behind it? And
he's back. He's back at the weight he should have been
Thank
fighting
you.
at all along.
And that's because, unfortunately, I hate to say, a lot of people just don't look at things like that right away. They just assume based on what a person's done in the past, or what they're doing now, that's the effective. You got to understand something. When you're at a comfortable weight, you become a more complete fighter. When you're not struggling or fighting fighters that are maybe too big or maybe struggling to make weight, fighters that are too that are smaller. You're at that comfortable weight, so you have a more successful training camp. You're not having to put so much focus in your weight because you're exactly where you need to be. You know, and I think that's one of the things that we were talking about was just the fact that Donaire was successful at that weight, and Donaire's counterpunching and just he used his size for so many rounds, and obviously the end result was Inoue winning a close decision, and it was very close. I mean,
It was. It was.
I mean, it could have been a draw. In my book, it could have been a draw.
Without that knockdown in the 11th round, I think he could have very well got away with the draw. But
I think it was an eye opener for the camp from Japan, and I'm gonna tell you why. Was the sheer amount of injuries that Inoue suffered in this fight, the orbital fractures,
cut,
everything. I mean, against a hard hitter, and you see, that's another thing that was really, really disheartening to me, was how quickly people basically dismissed Donaire's chances, forgetting that at this weight, not that long ago, he was the Manny Pacquiao. He was the guy they were talking about that was going to be the heir apparent, the guy who was going to be the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world.
Yeah, people got short-term memories,
yeah, they
man.
do, and I just want to congratulate. I think Donaire put on a masterful performance. He couldn't have done any better, especially a guy at his advanced age, the wars that he's been in, but he did it the right way.
And he was a guy that we considered for a comeback of the year.
I would love to see a rematch.
Yeah, why
I
not?
know there's talk of it right now. I know that it looks like and I don't blame them. That I know Inoue's people aren't real interested in it, and I'll tell you why. Because there was no rematch clause because it was part of a super series. But why would they want to take a risk based on the amount of damage he suffered in that fight? Why would they do that? Because all that's going to do is shorten his career. And if there's a guy out there that's going to make your career short, it's going to be Nonito Donaire.
Yeah.
So congratulations to both of them.
Yeah. So those are our co-fights of the year.
And there was a lot of fights out there that could have been in this thing, but for a lot of the casual fans, we're not going to sit here because it would take us all day to explain why this person should be here, this person. Yeah. But at the end of the day, but you know what though, I forgot a fight.
Like I said, hold on quick. Like I said, the reason why we narrowed it down to these two was because of the significance of the fight. One was the final of a tournament, and the other one was two elite welterweights fighting in their prime, unifying the titles, and on the big stage, pay-per-view, Los Angeles, Staples Center. So
there was one fight that I want to put as an honorable mention.
Sure.
Fight of the year, and I know it's a little bit close to our heart too because of our friendship, but I think it was John Molina, Omar Figueroa.
Yeah, that was a great fight.
That was an amazing fight. Toe-to-toe action.
Yeah, it was a little disheartening, the decision.
A little disheartening what they did, but I mean, if you go back and watch our fight, I mean, that was a huge amount of punches, and these guys were crushing each other with how Omar Figueroa stood up to those punches, I have no idea. So if Johnny's watching out there, honorable mention, fight of the year, and this is a guy who's had fight of the year before with his fight against Matisse, his fight against, Ivan Redchek was another one that was a possible, consideration. But, this one definitely, the fight against Omar Figueroa, it was right there, Yep. So honorable mention, the Gladiator, John Molina Jr. and Omar Figueroa. So we move on to
the final. Well, no. Our next to final award will be the Fighter of the Year.
Fight of the Year.
And this is a guy. Did we come up with? Are we in agreement that we had a
tie?
A tie, a 1 and 1A, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, our Fighters of the Year, like I said, are based off of what they accomplished this year, the competition, and the prospects going forward. If I had to give one the slight edge, I would say it was Josh Taylor. So real quick, so the Fighters of the Year, co-Fighters of the Year are Josh Taylor and Deontay Wilder. I think what Josh Taylor was able to...
It was Josh Taylor and Miguel Berchelt.
My bad. Not Miguel Berchelt. My bad, Miguel Berchelt. Reason being, Josh Taylor wins the world title in May, and in his very first fight, he unifies against Regis Prograis, who was considered like the boogeyman of the 140 pound. He basically was considered the guy that was going to take over for Terrence Crawford and clean out the division. And Josh Taylor fought he was a guy that doesn't have a lot of fights. What does he have, 15 fights?
Yeah.
He's a guy that, some people were saying, well, he's just a UK hype job. He's finally stepping up to fight, a real a real qualified, real top notch kind of a guy. And I got to be honest, even though it was a close fight, I think the outcome was never in question.
Oh no.
I thought
Yeah.
Josh Taylor imposed his will. Like you said earlier, he got Regis Prograis to fight his fight, to stand and trade with him, and the guy just, I mean, big things, big props to Josh Taylor, and big things are going to happen for that guy as long as he could stay. I know he had a little bit of outside the ring issues a few weeks ago, partying at a nightclub or something like that. But either way, if that guy stays disciplined and dedicated, that's a guy who could really, he could clean out that 140-pound division,
Well,
and
yeah.
he's got the frame to even move up.
Well, yeah, and the thing is with Josh Taylor, it really it sets up some real interesting matchups later on. Obviously, one of them being what we just talked about a little while ago, possibly him and if he wants to unify, and Chon Zepeda.
Yeah, that would be a great fight.
Would be a great fight. As you know, in the Super Series, there's no real rematch clause. So obviously, there's not. We're not going to see Regis Prograis. There has been no mention of it. There's been no talk of it that I've heard of. I don't know if you've heard anything on your end of there being a possible rematch between these two guys. I think Regis, fought the wrong fight in a lot of ways, but I think it's not so much what Regis did wrong; it's what Josh Taylor did right. And I
Yeah,
totally agree with you.
he imposed his will on Regis Prograis, and I got to be honest with you, going into that fight, I predicted Prograis to win the fight. I predicted a mid to late round stoppage, and I was completely wrong.
I thought Prograis was the favorite, obviously going into the fight. But if you remember too, we had that conversation, and I said one of the things I really liked about Josh Taylor was just his sheer toughness. I liked Taylor's past performance and just his sheer toughness, and something I didn't really see in Regis, because Regis kind of had that thing that was going on, kind of like what happened with Inoue, where he was just going there blasting guys and blowing guys out. And even in the fights where they went the distance, he completely, massively outboxed these guys. And he ran into a guy that was a tough guy. A guy that didn't take a backward step, a guy that came right back at him. And Regis thought, that his pride got to him, his ego got to him, and he fought Taylor's fight, and he paid the penalty for it. I know there's some people out there saying that the decision was in question. No, it wasn't. Go back and score that fight. It was not in question. Josh Taylor won that fight.
No, Josh Taylor won the fight.
Yeah, so it is what it is. So, Josh Taylor, congratulations. So that moves us on to the next one.
So our co-fighter of the year. Excuse me about the mind whatever with Deontay. I was thinking of something else, but Miguel Burchell. Here's a guy who's got a 37-1 record, 33 KOs. That loss came years ago, back in 2014. But here's a guy that is just quietly, he's destroying everybody they put him in the ring with. His last 4 or 5 fights have all won by knockout. He won a unanimous decision over the Japanese kid at the Forum. But here's a guy he's basically stopped his last 5 opponents.
Yeah.
And he's fighting good fighters, Francisco Vargas, Miguel Roman.
Well, Francisco Vargas, as you know, that's a top-ranked guy, and that's the guy who everybody was talking about was the boogeyman of the division. Yeah. And they had that close first fight, and then the second fight, Burchell did exactly what he had to do. He went and did his homework, and he came in and completely dominated and stopped Vargas. And dominating fight, and really kind of went under the radar. And it was, like I said, I don't like some of the aspects that goes on with Burchell and them, but you got to respect what he's done in the ring, and all he's done is everything right. He's not winning close, controversial decisions. He's completely dominating
people out.
Yeah, he's blowing people completely out of the water.
Yeah, he's blowing people out of the water. Yeah, and there's a lot of guys that you could make a case for fighter of the year. I guess the usual suspects, the guys that everybody expects. The Terrence Crawford, the Lomachenkos, the Spences. But like I said, Burchell quietly has just dominated fighters, knocking people out.
No, he absolutely has, and I think that's what we were. Like I said, when we were talking about it earlier, and we were, inside Deontay was a person who was in the discussion with us.
Yeah,
but when we really kind of thought about it afterwards, it's like Deontay, he looked absolutely devastating against Dominic Brazil, and then did what he didn't look stellar, but he had a plan. I think his IQ went up, and what he did to Ortiz against a solid top five guy, but had that hiccup against Tyson Fury. Now I know that got fights rematch is already done, and they're going to get it going, and that's going to be a short. In my book, it's a short night for Deontay Wilder, but that's a whole other discussion. But as of right now, I think these two guys, Josh Taylor and Miguel Buchel, have done exactly what they've had to do in boxing, and that is win impressively, and not take any sideward steps or any backward steps. Just whatever they put in front of them, no matter what the guy's record is or what the pedigree is, they just do what they have to do, and they've done it.
And they're in loaded divisions.
Absolutely.
Obviously, both guys are in load from 130 to 140. They're both in loaded divisions. I can see Burchell moving up very soon.
Yeah, well, there's already talk about him moving up already.
Yeah, but him moving up to one. God damn it.
Yeah. To move it up to lightweight.
Yeah, it's a lightweight, and like I said, there's more. God, there's a myriad, there's a plethora of potential matchups.
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean he moves up to lightweight? You talking about?
Yeah, at 135.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, yeah. If he moves up to one, I mean, obviously you got the big dogs up there. You got Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, who's also the newly crowned champion after his victory over Comey. You got
Tank Davis.
You got Devin Haney. But there's some guys up there, and
Shakur Stevenson is at 130 right now, right? Or no, 126.
Yeah, 126. But
he's going to outgrow that division quick.
Yeah, but you got Luke Campbell, you got Lee Shelby, you got Javier Frontua. I mean, Emmanuel the kid out of Emmanuel
Argentina.
Tagalwi or something like this. The guy's like 31-0. I mean, there's some really really impressive fighters in there. It's a loaded division, big time.
Yes, sir.
So
that's it. Those are our fighters of the year. Josh Taylor tie with Miguel Burchell.
Yep.
Our last award. This is a fun one.
Oh yeah, almost forgot about that.
We got one more. we got one more.
About this award.
We might make some enemies in this one, but we don't
it's
care.
Okay. We got enough enemies anyway, so we don't really care. So Mike, with that, we're gonna do drum roll for. Why don't you give us the title on it? What's it called?
The title of this one is the Roger Mayweather You Don't Know Shit About Boxing Award.
Okay, and here we go. Drum roll, please. And there it is.
Hold on. Real quick, the premise behind this award is it's to identify somebody who, when it comes to the sport of boxing, we believe has their head so far up their ass they can see their intestines. These are just guys that work in the boxing industry. It doesn't necessarily even have to be at a very successful or high level, but these are guys that are in the industry, that are known in the industry, that, in my opinion, have no business talking about boxing. When you hear some of the shit that comes out of these guys' mouths and the way that they try to convey a point or the comparisons they try to make, their head scratchers. We have another tie between Chris Mannix from DAZN and Ellie Seckbach from ES News. And these aren't things that I wouldn't tell them to their faces either. I mean, they're probably both nice guys. I think I met Ellie once or twice. They're probably nice guys, but it's some of the shit that they say. And I don't know. I mean, look, in the case of Chris Mannix, he does have a headset on, and maybe he's got a producer feeding stuff into his ear, and then he's regurgitating it out his mouth. But in the case of Ellie just gets out there with his camera, and whoever he has in front of him, that's the guy that he's blowing on at the moment.
Oh, he's terrible.
Dumbest shit. I heard something the other day. He made a comment after the Tank Davis Gamboa fight, where he said Tank Davis is one of the pound for pound best in boxing. And I said, based on what? Fighting for a vacant WBA title against a 38-year-old shell of his former self. And even though he did win, if not every round, nearly every round, and knock down Gamboa multiple times, but who doesn't knock down Gamboa multiple times? Gamboa now, I think officially has been down 16 or 17 times in his career. So it's not some amazing feat.
No, and you got to look at it too. Gamboa was coming off not too long ago, getting beat by a guy at 12 losses. So
yeah. And like I said, it's one thing to be an objective journalist and to ask questions. And sometimes if you have somebody in front of you, maybe you want to stroke their ego a little bit because you want to, you want to endear yourself to them so that maybe they'll give you a good interview or answer some questions. But to just flat out state falsehoods and pull shit out of the air that makes no sense.
Well, we've been listening to Max Kellerman. I call them the three amigos: Max Kellerman, Andre Ward, and Timothy Bradley. What they do.
Yeah, but like I said, those guys are like Albert Einstein compared to these two guys.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Chris Mannix was actually killing me, and in the one fight. I mean, I couldn't even.
Every fight he does, I am so blown away. Not only his scoring, how he scores a fight, but some of the things he says. Sergio Mora probably has to just shake his head and look and go, "What did he just say?"
Yeah, and me personally, I'm not even a huge Sergio Mora fan with some of the comments that he makes. But but at the same time, at some point, I mean, I mean, he must have a lot of restraint because I would turn on and tell Chris Mannix, which I've seen other people. I've seen Paulie Malignaggi do it to people. I've seen Tim Bradley do it. We turn around and tell a guy who doesn't know anything about boxing, like, dude, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I know. I've been in the ring. I've
Yeah,
heard I've heard Paulie say that to people. He got in an argument. I can't remember with who it was, and the guy was trying to get his point across, and Paulie basically tells him, he goes, "No, I think I know. I've been in the ring. I've really been in the ring. Unlike you. You're trying to get me to agree to something that I know is completely false because I've been in the ring." That's Chris Mannix. Chris Mannix tries to make Sergio Mora agree. Like, don't you agree, Sergio? Don't you agree, Sergio? It's like, no, dude, you're absolutely wrong, dude. What are you talking about?
Well, and like I said, I mean, Mannix tries to use big words and use his dialect to mask the fact that he really is not very well versed covering the sport
He
of
needs to
boxing.
go back and cover fucking women's college basketball and whatever else he's going to do, the OP Open or whatever. I don't care.
To me, it's like if somebody wants to become a referee in boxing, they don't just put you on a main event. They make you go learn the ropes. You have to go ref amateur fights, and then you learn kind of just your ins and outs in the ring, and you know what I mean. I mean, this guy really just Mannix. He really just doesn't have
Well, I
a
think that's the
clue.
problem with sports right now, though, world, is that you're seeing a lot of people are being put in these prominent spotlight positions and stuff that just because they have a little bit of social standing, they think they know the sport. And that was something that was a discussion we had years and years and years for guys like Jim Lampley, and then you got the guys that kind of flip. Guys like Al Bernstein and
Who
Max
used to
Kellerman,
be good?
who
Yeah,
used to be good, and now turn into what they call the corporate boys.
they just toe the corporate line.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. And it was like I was watching this MMA event the other day, and from Bellator, and they had John McCarthy, who was well-known MMA referee, a
Yeah.
referee and thing. He's an announcer now, and I'm like, it was a complete mess. It was like, okay, now coming up to, I'm like, I felt bad for this guy. He was almost like he was dyslexic. And I'm like,
Oh, geez.
okay, just because he used to be able to go, let's get it on, doesn't make him the guy who you should, I mean, I could
Wow.
barely accept, dealing with Diamante. I mean, and
Yeah.
that freakish. Oh, I
David
swear I got cut his
Diamante.
hair, dude. It's driving me nuts, dude. But no.
So I remember when I think it was when Munguia was in Vegas and he was fighting. I think it was on the undercard of Triple G Canelo, the rematch, and Munguia was on that card. He fought Brandon Cook, the kid from Canada, and I remember Robert was walking by, and Ellie, like I said, he said the stupidest thing. He said, he goes, "Oh, the next De La Hoya, right?" And I understand maybe that's the only fighter that he knew that Robert trained because, like I said, he's a
Yeah.
casual. He's a casual. But I said to myself, what the hell? Jaime Munguia fights nothing like Oscar De La Hoya. Never fought anything like De La Hoya. Doesn't have any of the similar characteristics other than the fact that they're both Hispanic. I mean, Oscar was Mexican American and Jaime's from Tijuana. But I mean, just to say things like that, like I said, to endear yourself
Oh,
with
I
whether
got worse. I got worse for you. When they were talking about the fight with Ryan Garcia, Chris Mannix was talking about the fight about Ryan Garcia. He compared Ryan Garcia to Oscar De La Hoya and saying how they had the same connections. I was like, what same connections? Ryan Garcia trains with the Reynosos, and Oscar De La Hoya was with Robert Alcazar. What connection are you talking about? That they're
maybe
both
he was just talking about the connection between,
No,
that
he was talking
Oscar.
about their connection, how because they both came from the same source, how they have this similar fighting style. Ryan Garcia fights nothing like Oscar De La Hoya.
No.
Absolutely, he doesn't have one quality, not one thing he does would remind you of Oscar De La Hoya, other than the fact he tries to be a pretty boy. That's it. That's about the only thing.
Yeah, yeah.
About the
And
only
like
thing
I said,
that him
and Oscar was a guy that fought first and did all that crap afterwards. I mean, Oscar
yeah,
was a fighter.
he's a fighter.
Oscar was a Olympic gold medalist, and he was a multiple six-time world champion in five
But
different
he was a
divisions.
guy who fought, like we talked about before, bro. He fought anybody. I mean, you said yourself, you were telling Robert, you were at his fight against Paris Alexander. A lot of the casual people won't know who Paris Alexander was, but he was a threat, especially when it's your second or third pro fight. This is a guy who came into the ring with 26 26 fights. I believe he was like
I don't
20.
know. I don't know what his record was, but
Yeah, but he was a well-known guy. You know what I'm saying? He was a guy that was a threat. He wasn't like some tomato can just thrown at you and shit, you know?
well, that's the thing. And then also too, Oscar didn't come up in the age of social media like Ryan Garcia is. Ryan Garcia is, I mean, he's fighting all these. I mean, he's winning fights on, what would you say, social media, whatever.
Well, I did this funny thing the other day. I don't know if you've ever seen that little girl, the one who they have hitting a tree, and she has absolutely no boxing ability whatsoever. And they're like, she's the future of boxing. This little white girl, she's over here, hits the tree like like the Energizer Bunny, and I'm like, yeah, the day that you can get an opponent to stand in front of you and you can sit here and do this 1,000 times in a row, oh yeah, then you probably win. And Ryan Garcia is doing the same thing with the Reynosos in there. Like anybody's gonna stand in front. So I put him side to side and I go, yeah.
What? Wait, say that again.
The little girl, you ever see the little girl that does the?
Oh no, I got that part, but yeah.
Oh no, and I'm saying, and then they were showing. I've seen a training thing with the Reynosos where they're showing Ryan Garcia saying he's the fastest person in boxing, and he's standing flat-footed and he's sitting here just. And I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, anybody can be fast if you're just standing in place and, like the Energizer Bunny. Just to make sense to me, it's like that's not boxing, man.
No.
That's just flashy crap, dude. It's like doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. It's like when Floyd Mayweather's preparing and warming up in the gym and he's over here doing the thing with his uncle and they're doing this thing. That does nothing, man. That's all for the television screen. As soon as the television screen goes away, Floyd says, okay, now let's really warm up. You know what I'm saying? That's all flash for the TV screen and shit,
Yeah. So anyway, to close out this award, like I said, not if either guys are listening or get wind of this, start respecting the sport a little bit more. And I guess when you want to make comments about fights or if you want to interview people, just keep it real, man. Stop with the out of left field comments and trying to stroke somebody's ego because they're on the same platform, or if you want to pump somebody up because they're on the platform that you work for. If you want to get an interview with somebody, you want to be able to spend time in their gym. Just be real, man. Be real, or just go cover something else. Go cover the NBA or something, where people like that are used to having their ego stroked and how great they are, or NFL players,
Well, I think for a case of journalism, I mean, if you have to understand something. When you're in journalism, you're considered the source, and if your source of information is completely wrong, irrelevant, or just made up in your mind, then don't give the source. And the bottom line is, Chris Mannix and this other guy, they don't even know what they're talking about. So how can they get people to believe in what they're trying to say if they don't believe it themselves? They don't even know it themselves. They don't take the time to learn. So it's ridiculous. They're just
Yeah, they got to do their
it's
homework.
the wrong information line that real true fight fans should be looking at. So listen to somebody else. Listen to Teddy Atlas. Listen to Paulie Malignaggi. I like Tim Bradley, but I'm kind of done with him now too. So listen to
Yeah,
Mighty Mike. You want to listen to somebody? Listen to Mighty Mike. Mighty Mike will tell you right.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna, like I said, we're not gonna stroke anybody's ego to get an interview. That's for sure. Not gonna say some off the wall shit, like walk up and, like I said, I mean, this is on a whole entirely another subject. But today I was listening to Sirius, and this was an old interview with George Foreman, and he was talking about, they were talking about the passing of Joe Frazier back in 2011, and he made a comment. He said, and this is another one where it's just a guy that just comes out of left field with this shit, because he fought in an era. He's stuck in quicksand. He just can't get out of that era. He made a comment. He said that Joe Frazier was the most, what do you call it? He says the most intimidating attacking heavyweight ever, next to Rocky Marciano.
Yeah.
And I said, you forget Mr. Mike Tyson? I mean, no disrespect to Marciano or Frazier, but
Do you
Mike
honestly
Tyson,
think Marciano would beat Sonny Liston? Do you honestly think Rocky Marciano would? I mean, Rocky Marciano was a throwback fighter. The guy weighed 185 pounds at his highest weight, literally 100, maybe 190 pounds.
But the point is, it wasn't a comparison who would beat who. It was talking about intimidation factor. I'm thinking to myself,
I don't see that.
who was intimidated from Joe Frazier?
No.
He was a 211 pound or 215 pound heavyweight who had no jab and just took punches. I mean, could you imagine Mike Tyson probably hearing that interview, just looking and going,
Well, can you imagine Mike Tyson fighting against Joe Frazier? What Mike Tyson would have done to Joe Frazier? He would have done the same thing to Joe Frazier he'd done to his son Marvis,
exactly?
probably 20 seconds earlier.
Exactly. Yeah, but like I said, for some boxing personalities are just stuck in an arrow. They're stuck in quicksand. They just cannot see past their own goddamn hand. It's like, dude, are you kidding me?
Well,
Mike Tyson was
so
the most
different to when I hear
intimidating fighter.
people. That's so different, brother. When I hear people talk about how good George Foreman, it just drives me nuts. I'm like, go, please go back and watch George Foreman fight, and just you'll see. If you okay, for any young fighters out there that want to learn how to box, I got a great bit of advice for you. Don't watch George Foreman. You know,
Or Joe Frazier.
or George Frazier. They do everything wrong. Now, if I had to pick between the two, I'm taking Joe Frazier. George Foreman, watching him fight was like watching somebody chop down a tree and watching it fall. It was just a mess, dude. I couldn't stand to watch a guy. Well, go back and watch the fight against Michael Moore. What a horrible fight. I couldn't take it, dude.
Yeah, he pretty much was losing every minute of every round and just
Now, you want
landed
to go
that.
back and see a good fight if you just don't like George Foreman. You want to see him take just an ass kicking for 12 rounds. Go back and watch Tommy the Duke Morrison just put it on him for 12 rounds. I mean, I
Yeah.
loved it, but it is what it is. But yeah, Chris Mannix, you guys learn, go get an old subscription of KO or Ring Magazine.
Exactly.
You know,
Dude, like I said, respect the sport a little bit more to do your homework and if
spend
you're
it
gonna
with Teddy Atlas. Seriously, go sit down
do
with Teddy
something.
Atlas.
Do something. Jesus Christ.
But
So,
hey,
well,
good stuff today, bro. So we
that
got any
was
fights.
fun.
We got any fights coming on? What's the first fight coming on New Year's? We got. I know we got Munguia coming up.
Mugia's coming up January the 11th in San Antonio. Let's see. What is coming up?
I'm taking a look too.
I know this weekend there's not a whole lot going on this weekend. There's not a whole lot going on this weekend.
We'll see.
Obviously,
Here.
with New Year's, everybody's kind of laying low. But we do have the Munguia fight coming up. Oh, Clarissa Shields fights on Friday against Ivana
A
Habazin.
girl who hasn't fought in 2 years and has no knockouts. Yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah.
Jesse Hart's fighting on the same day as Munguia against Mr. Disappointment, Joe Smith Jr. You know,
Oh yeah, Joe Smith Jr.
that
Yeah.
should be another one. But
That'd be a good fight, I think.
no, it's gonna be a good fight. But I don't know. I don't know what's up with that Joe Smith. I don't know. He drives me nuts, dude. The guy was I thought he was a thing after what he did to Bernard Hopkins, right? Was it Bernard
Yeah.
Hopkins? He put it on Bernard
Yeah,
Hopkins.
he knocked him out of the ring.
Yeah, and then he goes into that fight, his fight against Pascal,
Sullivan
right?
Barrera. No, Barrera, right?
Oh, that's
Wasn't
right.
it?
Yes, Sullivan Burr. Yeah, and it just looked like shit, but that's a whole nother
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. So everybody, tune in. Jaime Munguia, Saturday, January 11th.
Yeah, it's a week from this Saturday. So I think that's the next big fight coming up.
That's a
I
big
think
fight
the
in the
next
new year.
yeah, against Spike O'Sullivan.
It's gonna be a good one.
Should be.
Should be.
Yeah.
So what are you doing for New Year's? You not doing nothing? You just gonna hang out?
No, I'm a little under the weather. I'm actually a little feverish right now. I'm probably just gonna watch
Well-
TV.
well,
I know there's some
appreciate-
football game on right, there's some college on right now, I believe. So.
Yeah, I appreciate. Did you watch that Clemson game? That was a good game.
Oh, that was a heck of a game. I got to say, man. I was watching that fight and that game and tweeting about that game, and Clemson were not being outplayed physically. They were being outcoached from the get go.
Yeah.
And somebody made that same comment. I think it was Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk Herbstreit, after about midway through the second quarter, said the exact same thing. He said, they're just getting outcoached. And they finally got it together, and then made some adjustments, and then their place calling was so vanilla. It was so predictable. They had Trevor Lawrence running the ball multiple times.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, the kid can run, but his strength is his arm, and I couldn't understand what they were doing with that kid. I'm thinking, any minute now this kid's going to get hurt, and he's going to be done for the game. And there was one moment in that game where he did get hit pretty good. He got like high load, and then that Chase Young kind of caught him around the head and kind of ripped at his neck, but it didn't get called for flag.
I would say he was very disappointed with Ohio State's just some of the dirty tactics some of the players are getting away with. It was really bad,
And it was all over the internet.
Oh, yeah.
People talking about how dirty they were, and
dirty.
they nullified Chase Young.
Oh yeah.
They nullify. Listen, guys, if you're out there, if you're a football coach, just because you're physically a specimen, it doesn't make you a great football player. Because remember Tony Mandarich? Everybody thought Tony Mandarich was going to be the most dominating offensive lineman to ever step on a football field.
Never
Well,
did
Chase
shit.
Young, I'm not saying he's not a great player, but he was neutralized.
Yeah.
He was a factor in that game, and they didn't even double team him every time. There was a couple times where they would double team him a little bit, but he was neutralized. They went away from him. And props to Clemson. I'm rooting for them against LSU, but LSU is just they're a machine right now. But we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, Oklahoma had no business in that game. I think I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
But what are you going to do?
And obviously, we talked about it too. Like I said, I mean, with our boxing thing like this, we're gonna at the end of it, maybe we could cover once the XFL starts, which we're both big XFL fans, and we'll cover a little bit of that and talk about some of their games and stuff. It's always good to kind of mix. Football and boxing have always kind of fell in the same bowl, So we'll see
they're both contact sports, and they're competitive, and
and they're both exciting and stuff. And I think that's going to be the big talk and stuff. But maybe with a little rugby in there too, who knows? No women's tennis, I'll tell you that. But all right, bro, man. Well, look at you. Get some rest, man. Drink some tea. I'll talk to you, and you have a happy New Year's, bro. I love you, bro, and be
happy
safe.
New Year's, man.
And I'll tell your family, and I'll see you. Just get better, and I'll talk to you again later and stuff. To everybody else, Mike, close us out.
I'll see you at band rehearsal in a couple of days.
Yeah, I'll see you at band rehearsal. So we'll see everybody. So once again, from myself, from my brother Mike, Mighty Mike, AJ Rage, Enter the Ring, to all of your families, from all of our families. Have a wonderful, safe New Year's, and we'll see you in 2020.
And don't drink and drive.
Don't drink and drive. Stay away from Taco Bell and those tamales. Good night.